My fiancée mocked my depression in front of her friends, so I moved out at 2 a.m. Took everything I bought and left her with her echo. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I really thought I'd found someone who understood me. When I met Emily, I wasn't in a good place. My dad had just passed away. My job had slipped through my fingers, and I was barely holding myself together. Most days, getting out of bed felt like a battle I couldn't win. Then came Emily, this warm, confident woman who looked at me like I was more than my failures. She was the first person who didn't tell me to man up when I opened up about my depression. Instead, she'd sit next to me in silence, her hand on mine, whispering, "You don't have to fight your demons alone." I fell for her right there, not because she made me happy, but because she made me believe I could become happy again. I remember the first time she came over to my apartment. It was a mess. Takeout boxes, unopened mail, dust on everything. I apologized, embarrassed, but she just smiled and said, "We'll fix this together." It hit me harder than I expected. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't a burden. Soon, she became my anchor. She reminded me to eat, to take my meds, to call my mom. When I got a new job, she threw a small dinner just to celebrate me. I thought, this is what love is supposed to feel like. Healing, supportive, safe. But looking back now, I realized something I couldn't see then. Emily didn't just love me. She loved the idea of saving me. She wore my pain like a medal, proof of how selfless she was. And somewhere deep down, I think she needed me broken, so she could feel whole. That realization didn't come overnight. It crept in slowly, like a crack spreading through glass. When Emily and I decided to move in together, it felt like the start of something new, something solid. I had finally landed a stable job at a small marketing firm. And for the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling guilty about it. I wanted to give her everything she'd given me: stability, comfort, peace. So, I threw myself into making our apartment feel like home. I bought the couch she loved, the dining table she said looked elegant, and a massive TV because she joked that every happy couple needs movie nights. Each paycheck went into building that space. New curtains, framed photos, matching kitchenware. I remember standing in the middle of the living room one night, just smiling. For once, life didn't feel like a fight. But as the apartment filled with things, Emily started changing. She became polished, almost too polished. She spent hours getting ready for simple dinners, posting selfies captioned "blessed with my favorite person," even when we'd just argued minutes before. She'd tell me, half laughing but half serious, "You should smile more in pictures. You look like you're at a funeral, not a social media guy." I've always preferred being behind the camera, not in front of it. But Emily seemed to thrive on those curated moments, the likes, the comments, the attention. I convinced myself it was harmless, that it made her happy. Still, something about it felt off. Every time she posted a perfect couple photos, I felt less like a partner and more like a prop. She'd say things like, "People love our energy," but the energy she talked about didn't feel like us. It felt like performance, and yet I brushed it all aside. Because when someone once saved you, it's hard to see when they start rewriting the script until you realize you're no longer the main character in your own story. It started small, almost invisible, like cracks forming under paint. Emily had always been playful, sarcastic even, but her tone began to change in ways that only I seemed to notice. Whenever I got quiet, she'd smirk and say, "Here comes Mr. Pity Party again," then laugh before I could even react. I'd smile weakly, trying to play along, pretending it didn't sting at first. I told myself she was just joking, that it was her way of lightening the mood. But soon, those jokes found their way into every conversation. If I tried to open up about a stressful day at work, she'd cut me off with a laugh. "You really love being the victim, don't you?" And when I'd go silent, she'd roll her eyes and say, "God, I can't even joke with you anymore." When we went out with friends, it got worse. She'd interrupt me mid-story, twisting my words to make me sound ridiculous. "That's not what happened," she'd say, giggling as everyone looked at me like I was clueless. She'd finish my sentences for me, wrong, of course, and then pat my hand like I was some fragile child. Each time, the laughter around me felt heavier. I started choosing silence, letting her talk for both of us, afraid that saying the wrong thing might embarrass her again. And somehow, the quieter I became. The more confident she grew, basking in the spotlight while I faded into the background. One night, when she called me too sensitive for the 100th time, I caught my reflection in the dark window beside her. I barely recognized the man staring back, shoulders tense, mouth shut, eyes tired. Somewhere between her laughter and my silence, I stopped feeling safe around the woman I loved. And the worst part, I still believed it was my fault for making her it. Didn't take long before our apartment stopped feeling like home and started feeling like a stage. Emily began hosting parties every other weekend, her coworkers, her friends, sometimes even people I barely knew. She'd spend days planning them, obsessing over themes, playlists, and outfits. I'd help with cooking or setting up, but once the guests arrived, I might as well have been invisible. Emily came alive around them. She'd laugh louder, stand taller, and suddenly, every story had to be about us, except they weren't really ours. They were hers. And I was just a character she'd rewritten. She'd say things like, "You guys don't know what it's like living with him, therapy sessions. Meds, mood swings, the whole emotional roller coaster." Everyone would laugh. I'd stand there, pretending to smile, while my chest tightened. She'd raise her glass and add, "But hey, at least he's consistent. Always depressed, but punctual." They thought it was funny. How could they not? She was charming, magnetic, the kind of person who could make cruelty sound like comedy. And I told myself I was being too sensitive, that I should just take a joke. After everyone left, she'd kiss me on the cheek and say, "You were such a good sport tonight," like I'd performed well in some twisted play. And I'd nod, forcing a smile because it was easier than fighting. But inside, something was breaking. Every time she used my pain as entertainment, a part of me went quiet. I stopped correcting her, stopped reacting, because somewhere deep down, I realized I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her prop, and as long as her audience kept laughing, I'd never get to walk off her stage. That night still plays in my head like a bad film I can't shut off. Emily had invited a few of her closest friends over for dinner, people I barely knew but tried hard to make conversation with. I told myself it was just another night to be social, to show her I was trying. The table was beautifully set, candles flickering. Soft music playing, everything looked perfect from the outside. Halfway through the evening, one of her friends mentioned mental health, saying something about how men never talk about their feelings. Emily laughed too loudly and said, "Oh, trust me, mine does. He cries over everything." Everyone chuckled, and before I could react, she scrunched her face up, mimicking me, a trembling lip, a shaky voice. "He gets this look, the sad puppy face, whenever life gets too real," she said, mock crying into her wine glass. The table burst into laughter. I froze. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, the clinking of forks, someone saying, "Aw, poor guy." But it all sounded distant. She didn't stop there. Last week, he teared up because a commercial reminded him of his dad. She added, grinning like it was the punchline of a great joke. I couldn't breathe. My father's death, my grief was now dinner, entertainment. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. Emily looked up, annoyed. "Oh, come on, don't be so dramatic," she said, waving her hand dismissively. I mumbled something about needing air and walked out. The night air hit me cold, sharp, almost sobering. I stood there on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Realizing something that hurt worse than the laughter, Emily never respected my pain. She only cared about how it made her look compassionate, supportive, superior, and I finally saw it for what it was. Performance. I locked myself in the bathroom that night, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. I could still hear them laughing in the living room, her voice rising above the rest, effortless, bright, as if nothing had happened. My chest felt like it was caving in. Every breath came in short, panicked bursts. And I hated that I was crying again. There was a soft knock after a few minutes. "Are you seriously still in there?" Emily's voice was casual, almost bored. "Don't make it weird, okay?" Then silence. Her heels clicked away, and moments later I heard laughter again. The party continued like my breakdown was just a minor inconvenience to her perfect evening. By the time the guests left, I came out quietly, eyes swollen, voice low. She was wiping down the counter, humming. When she finally looked at me, her face was flat. "You really ruined the mood tonight," she said. "I'm sorry," I whispered. It came out instinctively like muscle memory. She sighed, setting down the towel. "You need thicker skin if we're going to make it. Not everyone's going to handle you like glass." Then she walked away, leaving me standing in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the half-empty wine glasses and crumbs of laughter still clinging to the air. That night, something inside me cracked, not loud, but deep. I started writing things down after that. Every insult, every jab disguised as a joke, every apology that only seemed to make her colder. The woman who once told me she'd never let me fight. My demons alone was now feeding them, and I couldn't tell if I was losing her, or if I'd already lost myself. After that night, something in me shut down. I stopped trying to win her approval, stopped explaining how her words hurt me. I poured everything into work and therapy, keeping my head low and my emotions locked away. It was easier to function when I treated home like a hotel, a place to sleep, not to feel. Emily noticed the shift almost immediately. She'd say things like, "You've become so cold lately," or "It's like you don't even care anymore." I wanted to tell her that I did care, that I was just too drained to keep bleeding for her validation. But every time I tried, she'd twist it back. "You're impossible to love when you're like this," she'd say, exasperated, as if my silence was the problem, not her cruelty. Then came the whispers. Mutual friends started acting strange around me, overly polite, distant. I didn't understand why until one of them, a woman named Kayla, messaged me late one night. Her words hit like a slap. "Hey, I just want to say I'm sorry. I didn't realize how she talks about you until tonight. She makes it sound like you're this unstable guy she has to manage." I stared at the screen for a long time, my stomach twisting. Emily had been rewriting the story, painting herself as the patient fiancée stuck with a broken man. My depression wasn't something she helped me through anymore. It was her excuse for cruelty. That message shattered whatever denial I had left. For the first time, someone else saw behind her mask. Someone else confirmed what I'd been too scared to believe. She enjoyed controlling how people saw me that night. I stopped wondering why she treated me that way and started quietly planning how I'd leave. I didn't know when or how yet, but I knew it was coming. It happened on a Sunday morning, one of those quiet, forgettable days that end up changing everything. Emily had gone out for brunch with her coworkers, leaving her laptop open on the dining table. I wasn't snooping. I was just cleaning up, wiping down the counter when a message notification popped up. Normally, I would have ignored it, but I saw my name. Curiosity turned to dread as I sat down and opened the chat. It was a group thread with her friends, the same people who'd laughed at her dinner table months ago. I started scrolling and my stomach dropped. There they were, screenshots. My texts, my private, desperate words. Messages I'd sent during panic attacks, therapy updates. Even the one where I told her I was finally starting to feel okay again. Each one had been followed by her commentary, jokes, emojis. "At least I'm dating a project." She'd written a project she'd written. "Gives me something to fix," another friend had replied. "You're a saint, girl," Emily responded with a laughing emoji, and it's exhausting being this patient. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the walls closed in, the air sucked out of the room. I scrolled further, hoping it was just a few messages, but it wasn't. It went on for months. Every vulnerable moment I'd shared, every fear I'd confessed, turned into her punzel. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the laptop. The apartment was silent, so painfully silent that I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't her partner. I was her performance piece, her living proof of compassion, her charity case, her stage act. The woman who once told me she loved my honesty had weaponized it. And the worst part? I'd handed her the ammunition myself after that day. Something inside me went quiet. Not broken, not angry, just still. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream, accuse, or cry. I just closed the laptop, wiped the counter like nothing happened, and made a promise to myself. She would never get another piece of me. From that moment on, I became an actor in my own life. I smiled when she talked, nodded when she bragged, laughed when she needed me to. And while she basked in her illusion of control, I started taking mine back, one quiet step at a time. At night, when she was asleep, I began listing everything in that apartment that was mine. The TV, the bed, the couch she loved taking photos on, the fridge, the plates, even the stupid decorative mirror she always called our statement piece. Every item was a reminder, not of love, but of how much I'd given. I opened a new bank account, rerouted my paycheck, and stopped splitting expenses. Every bill I paid, every meal I cooked, I logged in a small notebook. She never noticed. She was too busy curating her life online, our life, posting engagement selfies. Captions like "Find someone who makes you laugh through the storms." The irony wasn't lost on me. Weeks passed. I became calm, almost unnervingly so. The depression that once consumed me was replaced with something colder. Focus. She thought I was healing again, that the silence meant peace. But it wasn't peace. It was preparation. I wasn't planning revenge and anger. I was planning freedom and precision. And though she still smiled for the camera, I already knew the next time that flash went off, I wouldn't be standing beside her. It was almost 2 a.m. when I finally decided it was time. The party had ended hours ago, and Emily was passed out on the couch, makeup smudged. An empty wine glass balanced on the coffee table beside her. The apartment reeked of alcohol and perfume. The same apartment I'd once called home. I stood there for a long moment, just watching her sleep. Not out of affection, but out of disbelief. How could someone who once swore to protect me from my demons become the very thing I needed to escape? Then I exhaled and got to work. I moved quietly, methodically. Every sound felt amplified. The soft zip of a suitcase, the faint click of a drawer. I unplugged the TV, rolled up the HDMI cords, folded the sheets, and stacked the plates I'd bought with my first paycheck after getting that job. Every item I touched felt like reclaiming a piece of myself she'd taken. Outside, the city hummed distant cars, the buzz of a streetlight. Inside, there was only silence, broken by the occasional creak of the floor beneath my feet. My heart pounded, but I didn't stop. Not once. By the time I was done, the apartment looked hollow. Empty walls. Bare shelves. All that remained was the couch she loved, and the echo of her own laughter bouncing off the walls. I walked into the kitchen one last time, pulled the engagement ring from my pocket, and placed it gently on the counter. Beside it, I left a single note written in steady handwriting. You wanted laughter. Now you have echoes. I looked around once more, the apartment that had witnessed both my healing and my breaking. And then I opened the door. No slam doors. No dramatic goodbyes. Just a quiet click behind me, and with that sound, I finally walked out of her story and back into my own. I didn't see the chaos unfold firsthand, but I heard about it soon enough. By morning, Emily had woken up to an apartment stripped of everything but her echo. The text started around 7 a.m. Where the hell are you? This isn't funny. You can't just leave me like this. By noon, the tone had changed. She was calling me a coward, saying I'd abandoned her after everything she'd done for me. Then came the social media storm, long, dramatic posts about being betrayed by someone she nursed back to life. She painted herself as the victim, the devoted fiancée who'd been blindsided. But the thing about lies is, they fall apart when too many people know the truth. A few of her friends had already seen the screenshots, the messages she'd sent mocking me. Others remembered her dinner party jokes and the times she bragged about babysitting her depressed boyfriend. One by one, people stopped liking her posts. Some even called her out publicly. The comments shifted from sympathy to silence. Her perfect image, the one she'd built so carefully, cracked faster than she ever expected. While she tried to salvage her reputation online, I sat in a tiny apartment across town, simple one-bedroom with mismatched curtains and my old furniture stacked neatly in corners. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I remember sitting on the couch, the same one she'd loved taking pictures on, and realizing I felt lighter than I had in years. No tension. No walking on eggshells. Just quiet. When I told my therapist what happened, she smiled softly and said, "That sounds like a symbolic rebirth. Maybe she's right." But I didn't think of it that way. To me, it just felt like peace, the kind you earn after finally walking away from the fire. It's been months since that night. The night I left everything behind except myself. The silence I once feared has become my closest companion. My mornings start with coffee and quiet, not chaos. I go to therapy twice a week, not because I'm broken, because I'm rebuilding piece by piece, truth by truth. I started journaling again. At first, it was just fragments, words that didn't make sense, emotions I couldn't name. But over time, those pages became a mirror. I began seeing patterns, healing wounds I didn't even know were open. I joined a small gym nearby, started running again. The sound of my feet hitting pavement became its own kind of therapy, steady, grounding, real. Sometimes when I pass couples on the street laughing together, I feel that old ache creep in. But it fades quickly, replaced by something gentler, acceptance. I learned that peace isn't found in someone else's arms. It's found in your own ability to stand alone. Emily tried reaching out a few times. Long paragraphs about regret, about how she didn't mean to hurt me, about how she was struggling too. I read the first few words of her first message, then deleted it. You can't apologize for mocking pain you never tried to understand. You can't rebuild trust you shattered for applause. I didn't block her, though. I didn't need to. Some ghosts are best left to fade on their own. Now, when I look around my small apartment, the same furniture, the same walls, it feels entirely different. It's not what's in the space that changed. It's who is. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just grateful. Because I finally understand love without empathy isn't love at all. And the only echo left in her life now is her own reflection.